You have been treating your character as something largely fixed, not completely. You believe in growth, you have done the work, you know people can change. But underneath the belief in growth, there is often a deeper assumption that the essential self is what it is, that the limits are roughly known, and that the project of becoming is a project of better expressing and refining what is already there. This assumption has a cost. It makes certain possibilities feel unavailable, not forbidden, just not for you. The capacity you have not yet developed becomes the capacity you are not the kind of person who develops. The direction you have not taken becomes the direction that was never yours. The self that could be becomes, over time, the self that was never going to be. Giovanni Pico della Mirandola, the 23-year-old Florentine scholar who in 1486 wrote what has been called the Manifesto of the Renaissance, said something that cuts directly through this assumption. He said, "You have no fixed nature. Unlike every other creature, which was made with a specific essence and a specific place in the order of things, you were made with no essence at all. You are the one creature in all of creation that is not locked into what it is. You can become anything, not metaphorically, as the most precise possible description of the specific kind of being that a human being is. The freedom is not a luxury, it is your nature. And the failure to exercise it fully is not a small thing in his view. It is the specific failure to be what you were made to be. There is a specific poverty that settles into a life that has been lived within a fixed idea of the self. Not the poverty of limited circumstances, though that is real. The internal poverty of the person who has decided, based on the evidence of their history, what kind of person they are and what kind of person they are not, who has drawn the map of the possible self and is now navigating within it efficiently and often successfully, and who rarely notices that the map was drawn from the evidence of who they were rather than from the full range of who they could become. The culture reinforces this. Know yourself, play to your strengths, lean into what you are good at. All of this is practical wisdom. All of it also, if held without examination, becomes the slow contraction of a self that was made for expansion. The becoming narrows into the maintenance of the already become. The creation narrows into the management of the created. Pico wrote his Oration on the Dignity of Man, the text that was supposed to open a philosophical debate he had organized in Rome, as the most radical assertion of human freedom ever made in the Western tradition. Not the freedom to do what you want, the freedom to be what you choose. The freedom that is not granted by any institution or any circumstance, but that is the constitutive feature of the human being, the thing that makes a human being what it is, the freedom of the self-shaping creature, the being whose nature is to have no fixed nature. Giovanni Pico della Mirandola was born in Mirandola, a small territory in the Po Valley of northern Italy, into a ruling family of minor nobility. He was prodigiously gifted, reading Latin at the age of 10, studying canon law at Bologna at 14, philosophy in Ferrara, and then at the Platonic Academy in Florence, where Marsilio Ficino was presiding over the most extraordinary philosophical community in Europe. He studied Greek, Hebrew, Arabic, and Aramaic. He read Plato, Aristotle, the Arab philosophers, the Kabbalists, the Neoplatonists. He absorbed the full breadth of the intellectual inheritance of the Mediterranean world, everything he could reach, with the specific, barely containable urgency of a person who understood that there was more to know than any single life could contain. At 26, he proposed a public disputation in Rome, 900 theses drawn from the entire range of his reading, covering philosophy, theology, Kabbalah, magic, and the natural sciences, to be debated before all comers. He invited scholars from across Europe. He wrote the Oration on the Dignity of Man, the opening address for this debate. The Pope found 13 of his theses heretical. The debate never happened. Pico fled to France. He was briefly imprisoned. He was eventually allowed to return to Florence under the protection of Lorenzo de' Medici, where he lived the last years of his life in study and philosophical refinement. He died in 1494 at 31 years old, reportedly from a fever, though poison was suspected. He had produced, in his short life, a body of work that established him as one of the central figures of the Italian Renaissance, and that placed the dignity and the freedom of the human being at the center of the philosophical project that the Renaissance would define. The Oration was not published in his lifetime. It became, after his death, one of the founding documents of Renaissance humanism. Its central speech, the imagined address of God to the newly created human being, is among the most extraordinary passages in the history of Western thought. The speech. It is worth hearing directly. Pico imagines God speaking to Adam at the moment of creation. God has created all other creatures and assigned each a fixed nature, a fixed place, a fixed set of capacities. The angels are pure intellect, the animals are pure appetite, the plants are pure vegetative growth. Each thing is what it is, completely and without remainder. And then God creates the human being, and there is nothing left to assign. All the fixed natures have been given out. Every seat in the cosmic order is occupied. The human being arrives, and there is no predetermined place, no fixed essence, no specific set of capacities built in by the Creator. And God says, "We have made you neither of heavenly nor of earthly stuff, neither mortal nor immortal, so that with free choice and dignity you yourself may craft your nature according to your own will. You can degenerate to the level of the beasts. You can rise, if you choose, to the divine. You are the sculptor of your own form." This is the Oration's central move. The human being's lack of fixed nature is not a deficiency in the created order. It is the human being's specific dignity. Every other creature is limited by what it is. The human being alone is limited by nothing except the choices it makes about what to become. Pico is drawing here on a synthesis that is characteristically his own: Neoplatonist philosophy, Kabbalistic mysticism, classical humanism, and the specific conviction that the human being stands at the center of creation, not as a fixed thing, but as a creative force. The human being is, in his understanding, the creature that participates in all the levels of the cosmic order, capable of the animal, capable of the divine, capable of everything in between, because it was not fixed at any of them. The philosopher, for Pico, is not the person who has found the truth and is transmitting it. The philosopher is the person who is perpetually becoming, perpetually ascending toward the divine intellect, perpetually expanding the range of what they understand and are, because that is the specific form of existence available to the free creature. The fixed creature expresses its nature. The free creature creates it.
Now the bridge. Because Pico was a 15th century Italian Renaissance scholar writing within the specific frameworks of Neoplatonism, Kabbalicism, and Catholic theology, and most people watching this video are not navigating those frameworks, but here is what translates directly into the present moment. The belief about yourself that has become a wall, not a fact about your fixed nature. Pico says there is no fixed nature. A decision made at some point from some evidence that certain capacities are not yours, certain directions are not for you, certain versions of yourself are not available. Pico is saying that decision was made too soon. It was made from within a fixed idea of the self that the human being's actual nature contradicts. The sculptor of your own form, which is what you are, whether you exercise the capacity or not, made an early casting and decided the casting was the final work. It is not the final work. It was never meant to be. the capacity to remake, to ascend, to choose what you are becoming rather than only managing what you have become. This is the specific, philosophical, Renaissance serious claim about what kind of being you are. Not what you could be with enough luck or favorable circumstances. What you are, the creature of self-creation, the sculptor, the free thing in a world of fixed things, the being whose nature is precisely the lack of a fixed nature. Here is what Pico della Mirandola asks of you, practically, today. First, identify the casting you made too soon, the belief about yourself that arrived from the evidence of an earlier chapter and that has been operating as a fact ever since. The capacity you decided was not yours, the direction you decided was not for you, the version of yourself you closed off on grounds that no longer fully apply. Not the accurate self-knowledge, that is valuable and should be maintained, the premature verdict, the sculptor who looked at the early work and decided the clay had said everything it had to say. Name it, not to feel shame about it. The premature verdict was understandable, made from the evidence available at the time. To see it as what it is, a decision, not a discovery, a casting, not a limit, the early work of a sculptor who has not yet finished.
Second, choose one direction of ascent. Pico's God invites Adam to ascend, to rise toward the divine intellect, toward the fullest expression of the rational and contemplative capacities that the human being can develop. In secular terms, choose one direction of genuine development that you have not yet pursued because you decided it was not for you. Not ambitious in the external sense, not a career goal or an achievement. The internal direction, the capacity you have been treating as unavailable, the quality of mind or character or understanding that you have been observing in others and declining to develop in yourself on the grounds of the premature verdict. Choose it. Not the full development, the first step, the sculptor's first cut into the stone of the fixed idea. Third, practice the ascent through the intellect. Pico believed that the human being's capacity for philosophical understanding, for genuine, sustained, rigorous engagement with the deepest questions, was the primary vehicle of the ascent he was describing. The person who is genuinely thinking, not absorbing opinions, not rehearsing positions, but actually engaged in the live inquiry of the difficult question, is doing what the human being was specifically made to do. Find one genuinely difficult question, not a question with a Google answer, a genuinely open question about the nature of things, and spend 20 minutes with it. Not to answer it, to be in genuine philosophical contact with it, to feel what it is like to be the creature whose nature is intellectual freedom, engaging with a question that requires the full exercise of that freedom. Pico would say this is the most human thing you can do. Not because thinking is the only valuable activity, he celebrated the full range of human capacities, because the free engagement with genuine difficulty is the specific expression of the freedom that constitutes what you are. Fourth, release one fixed story about someone else. Pico's philosophy of self-creation applies not only to you. The people around you are also free creatures whose nature exceeds the current evidence. The verdict you have reached about who they are, the fixed story you carry about their limitations, their patterns, their likely futures, is a verdict rendered on a creature whose nature is precisely the refusal of fixed verdicts.
Find one person in your life about whom you carry a fixed story, a settled conclusion about what they're capable of, what they will do, what they cannot change. And hold that story for one day as a premature casting, as the evidence of what has been rather than the limit of what can be, as your assessment of the early work of a sculptor who is not yet finished. I want to close with the image at the center of the oration, not God's speech, though that is the heart of it, the sculptor. You are the sculptor of your own form, not the stone, the sculptor. The material is there. What you make of it is not determined by the material. It is determined by the choices, the learning, the striving, the cultivation of the capacities that the ascent requires. Every other creature in creation is the stone, shaped by its nature, expressing what was built into it. You alone are the sculptor, capable of the grotesque and the beautiful, capable of the animal and the divine, capable of everything, fixed by nothing, limited only by the choices about which way to turn the chisel. Pico died at 31, having made one extraordinary casting. The Oration is there, 900 theses, the synthesis of every tradition he could reach. The 23-year-old who proposed to debate everything with everyone and was shut down by the Pope and fled to France and kept writing. He did not finish, none of us do. The work of the sculptor of one's own form is not completed in a single life, but the choosing to be the sculptor rather than the stone is available in every moment of every day, starting now, starting with the casting you made too soon, starting with the one direction of ascent you have been treating as not available. The chisel is in your hand, the form is not yet decided. That is not the problem. It is the whole point. Here is the question Pico della Mirandola leaves us with today. Not from Florence, not from the Oration or the 900 Theses, from the sculptor's studio, from the moment before the next cut is made. What is the one casting you have been treating as final that is not final? What is the direction of ascent you have been declining to take on grounds that Pico would recognize as the premature verdict of a sculptor who decided the work was done before the work was done? And what is the first cut, small, specific, available today that begins the revision? Leave that in the comments, because naming the next cut is the beginning of the sculpting. And the sculpting Pico spent his 31 extraordinary years insisting is what you were made for. I'll see you in the next one.